So you guys film for essentially an entire year, correct?
Yeah, basically the format of the show is education based, and again we're shooting season 19 right now, which will air in 2025.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Hook One Pod. Hey, we're here in the studio at Hook One Bait and Tackle, right in Marine City, and we've got a familiar face. You might recognize Jake from our last episode, episode 40. That was 36 episodes ago. That's pretty crazy to say. What's up, Jake? How are you, brother?
Good, man. How are you?
Not too bad. Not only will you guys recognize Jake from episode 40, but also from Fishing 411, hence the name of this episode, the 411 with Fishing 411. Jake's been doing a lot of traveling around. Dude, I really appreciate you carving out some time in your busy schedule to sit down and hop on the podcast with us.
Well, I always love coming and chatting on your podcast here, and yeah, it's been crazy. I feel like all year long I've never sat still long enough to really do this. So I'm glad that we finally got some time to sit down and talk.
No, we've been going, man. It literally seems like just yesterday we were sitting at Outdoor Rama, looking at the new truck camper you had, which it looks like you've put really good use to that new truck camper.
Yeah, I have. It's been an awesome tool for a lot of times. We're just traveling along looking for areas where we're going to shoot our next television show. And so I don't know 100% where that's going to be. And so the camper's been a great tool for just kind of popping in, checking an area out, seeing if it's worth filming or not, and then leaving. So that's been a super nice tool for it. It kind of works out good. You hook up the camper, you hook up the boat, and you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, man, it seems like it's been a blink of an eye. That was in March we were talking, and now it's all of a sudden basically we're heading towards the end of September. And it's just really flown by. And that's really what I wanted to have you on the show and talk about. I like having you on kind of towards the end of your season. I know you guys said you still got a couple more shows to shoot, but I really want to touch on the PWC, the Precise Walleye Crank from Bill Lewis, and kind of talk about how that's been successful for you guys. And then kind of give our listeners and our viewers a peek into what we're going to see for Fishing 411.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess to start off talking about the PWC, it's been an absolutely great bait for us. In fact, we shot multiple TV shows with it this year, both the PWC and the PWC Lite. And obviously both of these baits are, especially the PWC, the original one, we built that bait with cold water in mind. So as the fall comes on, it is going to be kind of our go-to crankbait here. And, this spring we shot a lot of shows with the PWC as well as the PWC Lite. I think to me, it's hard to take what's your winner, right? They're both really good baits. They're high quality baits. The one I'm personally the most excited with is that new PWC Lite. And
This
that's
little
not
guy right here.
on the PWC at all. I mean, they're both great baits. But to me, maybe it sounds a little biased because we helped design these baits, but that PWC Lite is become my absolute go-to everyday confidence bait that I know I can catch fish with.
Yeah, man, no doubt. And that's an awesome segue. It's like you do this thing for a living. That's an awesome segue because that's one thing that I wanted to talk about is as we're gearing up for fall, at some point, I mean, we're sitting here at the end of September, it's 80 degrees still. But at some point, those temps are going to start dropping. And that's where, the original PWC, I mean, you can hear it. It's super loud bait. That's where this thing's going to have its home. It's a deadly cold water bait. It's a big bait that's going to trigger big bites. And it does a really good job in cold water. And I think part of getting that name out there is showing success with it. I can't wait to see the new season that you guys have coming up. I know season 18, which is the last season, you guys had a few videos in there where you guys were kind of highlighting the PWC. But the last time we talked, way back when, episode 40, is when you guys kind of debuted this guy, or we're getting ready to debut this guy.
I think when we had talked, I had like the prototype in my hands, right? Like that, we weren't even to market with that bait at the time. The prototyping process is such a cool process to be a part of from start to finish. And at that time, that was like the finished, when we did the podcast, it was like the finished last prototype before we went to production with it. And then even that, you catch fish with it, you have the prototype, you go through that whole stage, and then in your back of your mind, well, now they got to cast an actual mold. It's got to go to production. And when that first production run comes and hits, it's like, is it still the same? Is everything's good? we're putting our names on these baits, and to do that, they got to be good baits, they got to be quality baits. And I really think we hit an absolute home run with that PWC light. Can't even count how many fish I've caught on it this year. To me, it's just a bait that if I put it in the water, I get all the confidence in the world it's going to catch me fish.
100%. And there's a few things that, I mean, we talked about it. Guys, I'll leave a link down below if you want to go see the last episode that we talked about, because that entire episode was about prototyping the bait, how they designed the bait, why they designed the bait the way they did. And then that's when you kind of rolled into, you know, the PWC light and all that sort of stuff. And it's an awesome episode. As a matter of fact, it was the second podcast that was video recorded for the Hook One Pod. So it was the second podcast that went up on YouTube. But a few things about this bait, and you can talk a little bit more as we get into it, but a big thing about this bait that I like was, one, the bigger bill, especially for when you're in Lake Erie fishing deeper water. But when you're in Lake St. Clair, specifically, like, I'm a homer, right? So you don't have to have as much line out. The next thing are the color patterns. I mean, this is not a custom bait. This is not a custom bait. This is not a custom bait. This is stock right out of the package. And then the other thing that is the rattling, but the hooks. You guys use good quality hooks, and that's a big thing that I see run into a lot of crankbaits. That's not necessarily a knock on the other crankbaits, but I don't think that they have that in mind. And when you're out there in the fall, you're fishing for big bites. I mean, we want double-digit walleyes. So you got to have the right tackle to stand up to that.
Absolutely, and if you look at like the PWC, we'll talk specifically about the bigger profile bait PWC. If you look at the price of it, it is on the higher end of what walleye crankbaits cost, and we know that. But when we designed this bait, I didn't care about the cost. Every component within the bait, from the start to the finish, everything is as high quality as you could possibly put into a crankbait. The finish is high end, the hooks are high end, the interior components of the crankbait itself is high end. It's a bait that the reason it costs more is because it costs more to produce. It's just a high quality bait. And that's really what we were looking for. I knew that it would hurt us a little bit on sales. Obviously, it does cost a little bit more money. I understand that. But then when it came to finishes, we looked at, well, I want to take what would be called custom colors. For years, we've called them custom colors. We're going to make them stock colors right out the gate. We're going to give those colors to the guys. So then they're not taking that crankbait, having someone paint it. And by the time they're done with it, you really have about the same money into a custom bait as you would with a stock PWC. So that's where your price difference isn't as big. And we continue to keep coming out with more colors. We have more colors on the line for this upcoming season as well. So walleye guys love colors. I love colors. I'm obsessed with it. So if I look at a bait and I want that color, I'm buying another crankbait. And that's kind of the revolution of crankbait fishing, is we're all obsessed with different crankbait colors.
Yeah, and as it continues to grow and as we continue to learn more, we're going to continue to want to use new things. There's plenty of crankbaits out on the market. I mean, you guys were kind of, I don't want to say the first to bat there, but it seemed like with that bigger bill design, now you've got, there's other companies coming out with that bigger bill design so it can dive deeper faster. You guys kind of swiped that out right away. And then the other thing, like you mentioned, were the color patterns. And a lot of these color patterns, guys, you're going to see them kind of popping up in this video as we go along. As we're recording it, we don't see it. I'm going to edit those in there. But you're going to see all these different color patterns popping up, and they all look like custom color patterns. Some of them have a foil finish. Some of them have a clean finish. A lot of them have a chrome finish. It was really, really well worked out. What would you say? Could you give anybody any tips or any heads up if they were to run this PWC? Are you running it any different than you'd run a traditional bandit or a deep husky jerk? Or what, is there any, I guess, help cut their learning curve?
Pete, a ton of feedback back and forth with this bait. I have talked to some guys that have struggled to catch fish with the PWC, and I'll tell you exactly why you're struggling to catch fish on the PWC. It's the bill size, exactly what you said. It's the depth of this crankbait. We wanted to design a bait that got deep quickly and got deep significantly more depth than what an average crankbait gets. We have two options really when it comes to fishing crankbaits. If you need to get deeper, you put weight in front of it and get it deeper. But not just necessarily getting deeper altogether. You had kind of touched on it, Pete. I want shorter lead lines. I want everything tighter to the boat. If I can get to the same depth 30-foot back instead of having to run a bait 60-foot back, to me, that's a win. It's closer to the boat, less chance of that fish getting off. Everything's tighter to the boat, less chances for tangles. And so from talking to people throughout, sport shows and summertime, when I hear guys say that they're struggling to catch fish from the PWC, what a lot of times I'll hear is like, well, I'm catching them 55 back on a bandit. I put a PWC 55 back, I can't get a bite. That's a depth thing. I mean, if one of the things you want to do is take a time, look at the precision trolling app where we've tested all of this stuff, and you'll see how much significantly deeper this bait is. And so I would say that's just the learning curve. Other than that, we're fishing everything exactly the same way. And I never would bash on the bandit. I own hundreds, if maybe thousands of bandits. It's a great bait, and I know that's very popular in your guys' world. I'm not bashing on that bait at all, and it's absolutely a fish catcher. But then each bait has its thing, right? And the one thing with PWC is it's just a significantly deeper bait than most. And so you want to make sure you're checking out your precision trolling app, figuring out what your lead lengths are, because they're not going to be the same as the husky jerk or the bandit or even a reef runner. They're much deeper bait.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, all baits are treated individually, right? Like, you're not going to go there and run a husky jerk the same as you're going to run a bandit. You're not going to run a bandit the same as you run a P10. And for those of you guys that don't know, the Precision Trolling app is an app that you can get on your phone, and it's literally the troller's Bible. Like, you need the Precision Trolling app if you're going to be a troller. It's going to tell you exactly where to put your lead lengths to get to the depth you want. And the thing is, I mean, look at the hooks on these bad boy. I mean, they are big, meaty hooks, and that makes a big difference, especially those big wide gaps, to get a good hook set in on those fish.
Yeah, and they're very, very sharp, high quality hooks, oversized hooks, and we went to a 2-hook system with that bait because I felt like for years, that third hook a lot of times is just getting in the landing net. It's not necessarily helping your hookup percentage. And so I couldn't give you an actual percentage, but we lose very few fish on PWCs. And the average fish we catch have just T-bone these baits. And so it's that front hook. We used to preach with crankbaits that we used to preach with crankbaits that the back hook's the most important hook. And honestly, for me with the PWC, it's that front hook. I would say that 70-80% of my fish come T-bone. They're smoking these baits, and they're hooked on the front hook. You see a lot of the pictures on our social media and stuff, you'll see that I'm not rehooking these fish. They're just T-boning them, and they're getting hooked on that front hook. So,
you see it in the film
with that. So.
You know what I mean? You see it in the film when those fish are coming in, they're coming in sideways, hanging off that front hook. And that's a testament to, one, how aggressive those fish are, but how bad that they want to eat that bait. I mean, if they're coming in and hitting it like that, they want that bait.
Yeah. We've always talked about how like trolling is figuring out all the little different things. And to me, the way those fish hit it, when they T-bone it, that tells me that they want that bait. If you catch a fish and it's on the back hook, you fooled them, but you might not, you caught them, right? You did what you wanted. But to me, that's not good enough. Like, I didn't fool that fish 100%. I want that fish trying to digest that bait. In real world, walleyes eat minnows head first. So they should be eating your crankbaits head first. If they're totally fooled, they're trying to digest that bait. If you get them on the back hook, you fooled them enough that they swatted at it and they got hooked by that hook. But I want to fool these fish. That's the reason we crankbait fish.
100%, man. And a question that I've got a lot at the store and that I personally have is, we talk about how the big baits always produce in the winter, but then as you get towards summer, no matter what the big bait is when you want to downsize. Now that's when this guy comes into play. This guy's been a slayer on Lake St. Clair. The PWC Light has been very good. Would you use this in cold water, or do you think this is more of your warm water all around season bait?
No, we absolutely. Personally, I've had more success with that bait when the water's 50 degrees or warmer. That's where the bait really, really shines. But we've caught plenty of fish on it now in 40, 45 degree water. It's a little bit hotter action, a little bit more aggressive action style bait. Now, I'm not afraid to tell people, I don't feel like I've reinvented the world with this bait. When we designed the PWC Light, my all-time favorite crankbait, hands down, was the original pre-Rapala Storm Deep Junior Thunderstick. Still my favorite crankbait to date. That bait has caught more fish for me than anything, hands down. And so when we designed the PWC Light, you can still buy, on quote, the package says original Deep Junior Thunderstick. Well, the tooling has been changed. It's gone to China. It's not the same bait whatsoever than what it used to be. I'm talking to the true original Deep Junior Thundersticks. Mm-hmm. And you can't buy that bait anymore, right? That's the problem with that bait, is that it just, unless you have ones that you got from your grandpa or your dad, you just don't have those baits. And so we really worked hard to get that action of the Deep Junior Thunderstick into the PWC light, making an action that I know works and a bait that then you can purchase, the consumer can purchase. And then on top of it, add the colors that we're used to fishing, that we like to fish, because a lot of those old Deep Junior Thundersticks, old school colors that work, but man, some of our new metallic colors that we've come up with over the years are just absolute money. So with that combination of the two, we kind of married these baits together, creating what I consider to be one of the best smaller profile minnow baits on the market.
Yeah, I think you nailed it spot on. I was excited for the PWC when it first came out, but when we had that conversation back in July, it was July 31st of last year when we had that conversation. I was so stoked to get my hands on the light. And honestly, for us up here, like I know you and your dad do plenty of silver fishing. This little guy here has caught us a lot of salmon in the river this year.
Yeah.
We get a good push of salmon. It's got that aggressive bait that those fish like. And then running it in the summer over those weed beds on Lake St. Clair along the channel edges or out along those big flats. It's been a really, really good bait, a really aggressive. You mentioned the deep junior thunderstick, and now that I think about it and think about the action, you're spot on.
Yeah. We shot with
What's it?
underwater cameras and slowed it down. And I mean, we spent well over a year doing everything I could to get that true original action. And I think we pretty much hit it spot on. If you set them side by side in the water, and I don't feel like it's a copy because it's not a bait that is purchasable anymore. You can't go out and buy those original, when Storm was its own company, Rapala purchased Storm back in the day. Those baits just don't exist anymore. And so I had a charter captain buddy that has maybe a lifetime supply of the true originals from back in the day. And he was kind enough to give me 15, 20 of them, and I ran them all. We've got them all in the water. I looked at them, tried to figure it out. And it's crazy when you slow it down. You'll look at a bait in the water and go, yep, that looks close. And then you slow it down and it looks completely different. There's something different about it. So I'm sure the fine folks at Bill Lewis probably got annoyed with us a few times about sending it back and retooling it and rechanging it. But their engineers there are incredible. Those guys are absolutely top notch what they do. And so they know if it's not right, it's not right. We start over again. And that's what we did until we hit it.
That's the biggest thing I respect out of those guys over at Bill Lewis, and I've been fortunate enough to meet Wes at a few of the shows and stuff, and those guys are known to be a Southern bass brand. I mean, that's what they've been, and they've put so much time and money and energy into creating these walleye baits and making sure that they're the right thing. I mean, for you guys, if you're going to put your name on it, you got to make sure it's right. But for those guys at Bill Lewis, to take the time and to actually do it and be like, you know what? No, we're just going to run this. Like, this is good enough. Like, no, there's no such thing. Like, in such a competitive market, there's no such thing. It's got to be right. And what's that been like for you guys to go through that whole process that we talked about with making these baits, and now you're seeing them on stores? I mean, they're on shelves all over the place.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's so awesome to walk into a store, and when we think about the last podcast too, we talked about our signature series of rods. So it's kind of humbling to walk into a store and see Mark and Jake Romanack signature series trolling rods from Starfire X, and seeing our baits that we developed. It's just very, very humbling to be able to see that. You're right, though, about Bill Lewis Company. They are primarily a bass company. That didn't stop them. They came to us with the idea of walleye, wanting to get to the walleye market. They knew that if we were going to bring something to market, it had to be a high-quality bait, which I think 100% we've done. And, you know, they over the years, so when we started with Bill Lewis, again, they were owned by themselves, the Bill Lewis Company. They've been purchased by GSM Corporation. Now, a lot of times when a big company buys a smaller company, it's not necessarily a great thing. And in my opinion, this was a great marriage between GSM Corporation and Bill Lewis Company, because then what allowed this to happen is we had the financial support to be able to create these baits, create a high quality bait, maybe even better than what we could have done originally with Bill Lewis, and maybe even do it a little bit faster. And so that was just a great marriage. It wasn't like they purchased them and then cut all the funding. If anything, they said, what do you guys need to make this happen? They kind of rolled out the red carpet for us to help make this happen. So that's been really, really good. And one thing I tell people just to like kind of remember too, because I think that Bill Lewis Company will become an absolute namesake walleye company. I mean, if you look at the future, you know, you look at the past or what's happened before, you know, Berkeley, was 100% a bass company. And now, when you think of Berkeley, you think of Berkeley as a walleye company because they have so many staple baits, but that's not where they started. They started as a bass company. And so it totally, Bill Lewis will stay a bass company, but they're going to have their little footprint for sure in the walleye world.
Yeah, they've got some good stuff coming out. And Jake, you know as well as I do, for our viewers and listeners, obviously you won't get it as much just because you're not like in the industry like we are, but we could get into umbrella companies and how those ruin companies that we know of and how they've kind of hindered the growth of some companies because other companies sell out. But this marriage here with GSM, you could tell GSM came in with a pocketbook and they were ready to do it the right way. And I think that's the most important thing, because especially in the day and age right now of social media, and it's essentially the age of pro staff. You guys see it. To do things the right way is going to set all these companies apart in 2-3 years when we start filing through, oh, this is good, this isn't good. So that's been really cool to see, and I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things that I guess I encourage you to go out and to buy a couple of these baits, and put them in the water. One of the things with Fishing 411 television, if we go back to the TV show aspect of it, is we're shooting season 19. From day one, the television show has been about education. I'm 29 years old, right? So for as long as I can remember, we have been shooting TV, and it's been about education from day one. It's not about making a living. It's not about making a ton of money. For us, in my world, I want to make sure that if you go out and you buy yourself a boat, you buy yourself tackle, you buy yourself rods, you need to have success. If you don't have success in fishing, you're selling the stuff, you're going to go golfing next week. I don't want to see you golfing. I want to see you fishing. I want to have you have success out on the water. And so I truly believe that the PWC Lite are both tools that will absolutely help you have more success on the water.
Yeah, and that's a big reason, man. Like, that's a big reason I got the opportunity so many years ago to work in your guys' booth. I had an opportunity from offshore when I was pro staffing with them to choose anywhere at the Novi show that I wanted to work out of their 3 locations, and I chose the 411 booth because that's my same philosophy here at the bait store. Is like, if we can't help you guys out there learn, we're fortunate enough to be able to do this. Like, you guys are fortunate enough to travel around and go to these different bodies of water, and I'm fortunate enough to be out on the St. Clair River and out on Lake St. Clair just about every day. With the baby, it's been a little tougher every day, but just about every day. And it's to help other people catch fish, because some people might only have 1 day a week. Some people might only have a couple days a month. And if you're not catching fish or you're not out there enjoying yourselves, you're going to be golfing, you're going to be camping, you're going to be doing anything else that's not fishing. And the whole thing is to grow it. And for those of you that haven't watched 411, I do highly, highly recommend it. It's why we like to have Jake on the show. It's because if you watch a show, they're showing you what they're using. They're explaining the method behind their bait. You're not just watching 12 minutes of fish catching filled in with ads and all that sort of stuff. You're getting useful information. For example, check out season 14, episode 10. That's the St. Clair River episode. You guys come up here on the St. Clair River and do something totally unique to what anyone else up here is doing. You guys were using spinning glows in that episode, crushing fish on the northern end of the river.
Yeah, I remember that episode. That was fun fishing. We need to come and the two of us need to get together and shoot a show on the river too. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you know what? This year I spent a lot of time dialing something in that me, you, and your dad have talked about for a while. And I'd love to get you guys up here chasing some silverfish. That is my number one goal. I feel like we've got it down to the point now. My biggest worry is to do something like that and then have the camera come on the boat and flub it, which I'm sure happens.
It happens more often than not, buddy. It's crazy.
No doubt.
I'll do.
But we've got into something really special here starting in March and running through the middle of May that we've been slowly dialing in. Every year has been getting better and better and better. And it's those Atlantics. We've talked about it. I know your dad has done a lot with that. Mark is fascinated with that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, man, there's so many things to do out here. It's just like we got to just pick one thing and do it. But you're always welcome in between traveling around, because you guys have hit some serious destinations. And that's what I wanted to ask about the PWC. Is this just a Great Lakes bait, or have you guys tried this on other waters and had success doing it?
Oh, absolutely not just a Great Lakes bait. I mean, Me personally, I fish the bait everywhere now, from basically North Dakota to New York and everywhere in between. And we have a ton of guys out in the Dakotas that are having great success with it. A ton of guys down south that are having great success with it. The PWC, we're talking about other species of fish other than walleyes that guys are having good success with. So it's a bait that works a lot of different places. And you'll notice that about a lot of good baits, right? When
Yep.
baits are good, they're fishy. I mean, they work a lot of different places. And obviously, we're Great Lakes guys, and so that's tends to be where it's most popular. But we for sure are getting really good response from guys in different parts of the country.
Yeah, that's the best thing I think about you. Like, you guys have a very, and most fishermen do, but you guys have a very good web of anglers. And from South Dakota to New York, to be able to test that bait. I mean, the bite that they've got going on in the Dakotas with walleye fishing right now is just like remarkable. I mean, you're talking 5 fish bags of 55, 60 pounds.
Yeah, there's some absolutely incredible fishing out west. But I say it all the time. We travel all over the place, and when we go down to the metro area in general, from basically the St. Clair River down to Lake Erie, that section of water right there is about as good as it gets in the world. I mean, honestly, between all the different species you guys have to target down there, the quality of all the different species you have to target, you get sick of walleye fishing, you can go perch fishing, you can go Atlantic fishing, you can catch cohos, you can catch muskies, you can go right down the list of just about everything that swims in fresh water and game fish species, and they're in catchable numbers where you guys are right there.
Yeah, aside from the lake trout, which they'll hang out in the northern part of the river, upper river, but they don't quite make it down to us all the time. It seems like they usually get hung up on that sandbar in St. Clair and north. But aside from the lake trout, depending on the time of the year, I mean, you're talking Atlantics, cohos, steelhead, browns, whitefish, walleye, perch. You get closer to Lake St. Clair, and you're talking obviously big perch, bluegill, pike, muskie, smallmouth, largemouth. Obviously, the sturgeon fishery is blowing up here. It's something that we're going to have to keep a close eye on, because there's a lot of people out there catching sturgeon, but it's a world-class sturgeon fishery. So it's really hard to do something like that. So we've been super fortunate. And hopefully it just stays that way. But hey, if you don't mind, I want to get a little into 411 if we've got some time. You cool with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So first off, I'm going to let the viewers know and our listeners, guys, if you want to check out Fishing 411, head over to fishing411.net. It's fishing411.net. That's their website. There is a blog. There is a newsletter. There is all of their videos to watch everything. It doesn't get much better in the sense of informative content. And again, Jake, that's a big reason why we love working with you guys and we love having you on the show. You guys are all about information, whether it's the precision trolling app, whether it's about why and how you do the PWC, whether it's how fast you're running your lines. You guys shoot shows. You've been doing a full season of filming and you still have 2 shows to shoot. So you guys film for essentially an entire year, correct?
Yeah, basically the format of the show is education based, and again, we're shooting season 19 right now, which will air in 2025. So we shoot
That is so cool, dude.
a year in advance, right? So we kind of start our filming in the wintertime around sport show season, depending on the winter. And then we film all throughout the entire year. That content then gets edited down and turned into actual television shows where it airs nationally on the Sportsman's Channel, the World Fishing Network, Sportsman Canada. If you got any Canada viewers listening, Sportsman's Canada has really grown with some great viewership on the national broadcast.
Yes.
And then it's streamed a ton of different places. A lot of different on-demand streaming places. We have that listed on our website, fishing411.net. But then, if all else fails and you can't find us anywhere else, we're absolutely on YouTube as well. So you can check our YouTube channel out and watch it there. So the goal is to try to get it out as many places for you guys to be able to view it. We break down into shorter clips. So if you don't want to watch a 22-minute episode, that's how long an episode, on TV it's 30 minutes, right? But you take the commercials away, 22 minutes of content. If you don't want to watch the entire show, that's okay. We break down tech tips and try to do as many small videos as possible. Those are on our YouTube channel. So, yeah, right now we're kind of in the middle, of a filming season, I guess, right? Like, it is September. We have 11 shows to this date shot right now that are completely done, that are going to be edited down as content. We shoot 13 original television shows. So before the end of the year, we've got a couple more shows to shoot. And I love hunting. We don't hunt for a living. It's kind of my getaway. So we're going to do some duck hunting here in the next couple weeks. We'll be in Saskatchewan for a couple weeks duck hunting. and then we get home and I'll be right back to fishing again. So there's a lot of really good fishing in the fall. And so I'm sure we'll get some really good content shot in the fall.
How does like a traditional season work? Do you guys essentially just like close your eyes and throw darts on a map and that's no, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean
Do you
you're
guys
not very
have
far off. Absolutely. So there, we want to be where fishing is good, right? And it
yes.
makes our job a lot easier when the fish want to participate. So you can go to one of the best fisheries in the world at the wrong time of the year, and it doesn't matter. It's not good fishing. And so I'm very blessed to have a lot of friends all over the country that are giving me calls saying, "Hey, Jake, get your butt over here. It's time to do some fishing. The fishing's really good." And so that's super helpful. And then just doing these shows year after year, you kind of get an idea of like, it's August and I want to do a walleye show. I probably want to go to Green Bay because it's a world class fishery. If you ask me, Green Bay is the place to be in August, right? It's the month of May, and I want to do a big walleye show. It's pretty hard to beat Lake Erie. You start learning these areas and the time of the year where you want to be, and then we just kind of watch the weather. I mean, I must, stare at my weather app on my phone constantly all summer long because I can't shoot a show if it's rough out. It's got to be a relatively nice weather and a couple nice days in case it takes a couple extra days to shoot a show. In a perfect world, we can shoot a show in a day, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes it takes a couple of days to piece it together to get enough content to what we're looking for. So you'd hate to show up and then just sit in a hotel room also. So we're following that weather all the time.
Yeah, and Lord knows how good the Weather Channel apps are and how good they've been this year for us.
Rough.
It's just been
I would say
it's been a windy, wet.
leveled out a little bit, right? I mean, this spring was the roughest spring I can ever remember. The wind never stopped blowing, and it didn't matter if it said the wind was going to blow 5 miles an hour. It was blowing 25 miles an hour.
Yeah.
We got beat up this spring, but it seemed like by about the middle of June, things started to level back off again, and we've had some really good fishing this summer with some nice weather.
Yeah, no doubt, man. During the guide season, it got to the point where it's like, we're going. Well, the weather says it's going to be, well, I don't care because yesterday it said the weather is going to be 20 and it was flat calm outside.
Yeah.
And the day before that, it said it was going to be 5 out and it was blowing 25 and we were in 3-footers. So it's like, we got to go and we're going to make the best out of it. And if something happens, something happens. But it is hard. And especially like you're saying, like it's countrywide. Like you guys are looking from the Dakotas to New York. And then you're also going north. I think that's why you guys have a good following in Ontario. But those Ontario episodes you guys do are unbelievable. The quality of fish that are up there, especially up in the Northwoods, are just unbelievable. Whether you're talking walleye or trout, big pike, it's a beautiful, beautiful fishery they've got up there.
It's so much fun, and it's just that up north feel. The fishing's incredible. I mean, I tell people it's hard to people get their mind wrapped around, but in like a 4 or 5 day window, it's very common for us to catch 12, 13, 1,400 walleyes in a 4 or 5 day window. I mean, you literally get sick of catching walleyes, and it's truly a dream come true when you go up there and can catch a walleye on almost every cast. Now, it doesn't happen like that the second you show up. You got to find them, but you're talking about such high populations of fish. In the springtime, they're all concentrated. A lot of times you can find them where they're grouped up to where you can make, like this last year, I had 26 casts in a row where I caught a fish, right, where I caught a walleye. So
what were you using? What baits?
Just jigs and plastics and using live.
Just throwing jigs?
Yeah, just using live sonar, jigs and plastics. And honestly, with live, it makes it pretty hard for those fish because even if they move a little bit to the left, you just scan over, oh, there they are, and you make another cast on them. And so it's if you haven't done the Ontario thing, gone up to Canada, it's definitely worth your time going up there. It's very, very good fishing and just a cool experience up there. But I would say that's the coolest thing is getting to pick a fishery and then just go to it and get to experience it. The thing that if I had to make one complaint, that's a small complaint, and I understand, is that we move so much. Like I'm on the road constantly to shoot these shows. 13 shows don't sound like a lot, but there's 12 months in a year, and it's hard to get 13 high quality bites showcased on national television every single year. It takes the whole year to do it, basically. So it seems like if you find those really good bites, we get what we need, we got to leave. We can't really stay, So
right.
That's a small complaint. I understand that, but that's that it is a lot of time on the road, a lot of time traveling.
Well, and for you guys though, it's tough. Like I mean, just sitting here doing what we do, I could only imagine how hard it is to be dipping out every month, basically, or what it ends up being is a couple times a month because you've got to have some time to yourself and with your family. But the fact that you do it all season, I think me and all of your viewers can say we appreciate. because it's not like we're just seeing the good spring bite or like the good summer bite. You know what I mean? We get to watch the bites go as the year goes, and it helps us learn too. Like you can kind of follow the patterns of fish. Like, oh, they're fishing Lake Erie in the summer and they're closer to New York. Why are they doing that? Well, the fish are moving east, right? Like you're not going to waste your time where there's no fish.
Right.
So it's cool to be able to watch that process through the whole year in all those spots that you touch, because for a lot of us, the more we learn, the more we want to fish. And that's the whole point, is to get people out on the water more. I mean, we're running our fall derby this year. We've never ran a fall derby. And I've had a bunch of people say, hey, we want you guys to run a fall derby. Like there's enough interest that guys want to fish October and November. That's always deer season in Michigan.
Absolutely.
But it's cool to see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and it's cool to see. It wasn't that long ago where honestly they thought after Labor Day you couldn't catch a walleye anymore, and now here we are fishing all the way up until
after the 4th of July. Like
yeah.
most of the guys up here, most of the locals up here typically put their boats away the 4th of July. And it seems like every year that we've been here, not saying that we're doing it, but I'm saying it helps passing that information along. It's like every year that we're here, we see more and more people like, I don't really want to be sitting around. I might go piddle around in the lake. Well, why don't you go out and try, the edge of a weed bed, an 18 foot, instead of using a 1 ounce jig, try using like a 1/2 ounce jig in a different plastic. And then, you start getting feedback from those guys. And next thing you know, you're making a year round fisherman out of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I love fishing all different times of the year, but I'm a cool weather guy in general. I would much rather be fishing when it's cool out than when it's hot out. We fish year round, but fishing in the fall, fishing in the winter, fishing in the spring, that's my absolute favorite. And then in the summertime, I'm just waiting for it to cool back down again. I'm still fishing, but I would rather be in the boat when it's 20 degrees out than when it's 120 degrees. So
Give me a jacket and some bibs.
I love that cool weather.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So hey, the last time you were on the show, you debuted a new bait for us.
Yep.
Do you want to give us a sneak peek into maybe a destination or two that you're excited to see come out on film next year?
The ones that are closest to your guys' home right now, to your home, is we shot 2 shows this year. We shot one on the north, kind of the Ontario waters of Lake Erie, coming out the mouth of the Detroit River.
Yes.
That area there has always been very good. We shot a PWC light show there and caught just a ton of fish. There's really good content there. So that's not far from you guys in your world. The other show that we did that I'm actually super excited about, I wasn't in the boat. Roy Miller and my dad shot that show on the Detroit River, and they were trolling PWCs in the actual river itself.
Yes.
In that show, I'm super excited to come out because I think it's going to show a lot of people that you don't necessarily have to jig the river. You absolutely can, but there is a trolling bite in the river, and that's going to show all the details of that. So I have a feeling that's going to be one of the more popular shows this year, just because it's not something that people normally do within the Detroit River.
Mm-mm. No, and it's been a fairly I don't want to say a well kept secret, but it's been kept fairly low. Like you'd hear people go down the river and they're like, there's people with planer boards out there. And it's funny because I talked to Roy quite a bit about that. And then I don't know if it was a snippet. I saw something come out about that episode and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I talked with Roy quite a bit about it, and I actually put it to use out here in the river, and had some success up here. Now, some spots are different than others because obviously they'll see when the episode comes out, but where they're at, the current's not extremely strong. But there's spots in our river where the current's not super strong, and I was able to basically put together a very similar program, running less rods because I was running kind of the inside side more so. But it was really cool to see, and I'm very excited for that episode. Very excited.
The progression of that is that we've always been told forever, and that even the best fishermen in the world are constantly learning. We're always learning constant, and for years we've been basically told that when they're in the river, every fish that's in the river is at the bottom because that's where the current is the least. And I've always been told that if you're fishing a river system, you fish the bottom. And that's just simply not the case. We're finding that more and more. I would say personally for my fishing, where I started really seeing that is running live sonar. Like I have a Garmin live scope up on the front of the boat. The amount of times I'm up on the bow staring at that screen, looking at fish that are suspended underneath me that I never marked before on traditional 2D sonar, blew my mind how many fish are suspended up in that river system, even in the heavier current areas. So you're right, though. It's definitely a lower current area. It's easier to get away with trolling in the lower current areas, especially when you talk about like the St. Clair River, you have some water that's cooking through there. So it
Yeah.
is a little bit areas where there's a little bit less current, but we're going to have every detail within that episode that comes out, and I think it'll kind of show the world exactly how to do that. So if you want to be a part of the Detroit River, you want to fish the Detroit River, but you've decided as a fisherman jigging isn't your thing, you can absolutely go out there and catch them trolling.
Yeah, and I think you nailed that spot on. We're always learning. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit I was that. You know, I have podcast episodes. My customers have heard me, and our listeners have heard me. You know, these fish are always on the bottom, and every year you learn more and more where there are certain situations where they are most certainly not on the bottom, and there are certain spots where they're doing different things.
Yep.
Now, are you going to go out there and find them in the middle of the channel in 35 foot, and you're going to find a school of them suspended? Odds are probably not.
Probably.
But there are certain spots, like you were mentioning, and you'd be surprised how many times when we're in 35 foot of water where you're like, oh man, that must be, for me specifically, like, oh man, that must be a coho or something off the bottom. And you bring your jig up a little bit, you bring it 4 or 5 foot off the bottom, boom. Well, that feels like a walleye. You bring it up to the top, sure as heck. Yep, it's a walleye.
Yeah, walleyes are slaves to their stomach, like a lot of game fish, right? Most game fish. So, if there's bait that are high up in the water column and even in a river system, even though they got to burn some more energy staying up there in the current, they're going to come up and eat that bait. And so, it definitely is. That's probably one of the shows that I'm the most excited about. We did shoot some cool adventure shows this year too. That'll hit the show, the market there. We shot a show at Isle Royal, which was pretty cool. Of course, we did go back up to Canada and shoot a couple walleye shows up there. We shot some. One of my favorite places to salmon fish in the whole wide world is in New York. And we shot some really, really cool salmon shows in Lake Ontario in New York. Out of Olcott, New York this year where we were. So we got a couple cool shows there. I would say everything across the board sitting right now, I'm super excited to bring to the plate. And then one of the shows that we're doing this year that I'm also pretty excited about is it's not going to be a fishing specific show, but we brought Gabe Van Warmer, our cameraman, out in the boat while we were precision trolling testing, and we kind of broke that down a little bit more than what we normally do. So we really kind of showed exactly how we're doing this precision trolling testing. We have nothing to hide with it. We're using a diver in the water. It's very interesting stuff, and I just want to show people exactly how we're doing it so they understand that it's a lot of hours put in to get this information from precision trolling.
Oh God, do you know how many lures are on that app?
I should. That's absolutely something that
I don't think you can, dude. I think it's that many.
It's a lifetime of testing. It's very high.
Like if you name a diving lure, it's on there.
Pretty much. Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable. And you guys did an episode, or did you brief a segment maybe that kind of touched on that? I feel like I saw something that kind of touched on that, but I'm really excited for that one.
I would probably say 5-6 years ago now, we did a little segment on precision trolling. It's not that I'm afraid of someone copying what we're doing, because at this point we've done so much data, it would be hard for someone to ever come and copy and duplicate this. It's been literally a lifetime of testing. Before my time, I remember literally being in diapers, sitting in the boat while my dad was precision trolling testing. So it's something that we've done for forever. And I wanted to make sure we brought a show to market that really kind of showcased it, because it's unique. It's something that's completely different. It's long hours on the water, and doing stuff like, I'll give you an example, Pete. Right now we're working on trying to get crankbaits even deeper than what a snap weight will get you. So we tested this summer that we're calling the 50 plus 3T. What that means is 50 foot of lead and a number 3 offshore tackle tadpole. And the depths that we've been able to get, we're looking at in that 60 foot range, being able to get crankbaits down in that 60 foot range. Just super cool information, especially for our friends over on the Eastern Basin. These guys are constantly trying to get deeper. In a lot of cases, they're trying to run 4, 5, 6, 8 ounces of lead on their line to get their lures down to that depth. And I think we've showed with a number 3 tadpole, you can very easily get down in that 50, 60 foot range with 150 feet of line out. So it's pretty impressive the depths we can get. So I feel like precision trolling is one of these companies that have just kind of innovated, brought innovation to trolling. Putting snap weights in front of a crankbait used to be only the best of the best was ever doing that. Now with the 50 plus 2, it makes it so literally anybody can go out there and get their baits deeper in the water column. But we've had so many people come to us and say, well, how do I get deeper yet? We tested 50 plus 3, which would be the 3 ounce weight. I wasn't impressed with those depths. I didn't even want to bring him to the market because it was only bringing a couple extra feet of depth, which isn't enough to matter. So we were looking at what that next thing is, and we haven't released it yet. It's all new information from this summer, but we showcase that in the television show.
Dude, that's going to be awesome. That's going to be really cool. I appreciate you giving us a heads up into that too. That's going to be really nice, especially for a lot of our trollers. And really, we get a lot of river fishermen that listen to this show and that watch this show on YouTube. So I'm excited for them to get a little peek into that because they ask a lot about trolling. And for trolling, like, it is a pretty big learning curve. For me to get into it, you know, a lot of guys hear like the 50+2 and they're like, well, how does that work? Or they hear, you know, oh, it's 35 back behind the board. Well, then how far do I let the board out? All this sort of stuff.
Yep.
So I'm happy that that's going to give a lot more people access to get out there and get trolling.
For sure. And that's what it's all about. We
Uh,
just want to give as much information as possible and have guys have success.
yeah, man, that's super cool. So hey, we've got a few minutes left. I want people to get a little peek into what do you do when you're not fishing? What do you do when you're not filming and when you're not fishing? I know you mentioned you guys have a duck hunt coming up. Is hunting kind of like your sanctuary away from the camera?
It is, yeah. You know, honestly, it should be said that I have two kids, so I have a little boy and a little girl. That takes a lot of time. I know what you know that, Pete. So, you know, spending some time with family is important. I'm on the road pushing about 250 days a year as it is, so I try to stay home when I'm not on the road filming. But I do a lot of hunting. I kind of got the hunting bug. I try to keep that for fun, right? So I do a lot of deer hunting, a lot of duck hunting in the fall. We'll be out to Saskatchewan for a couple weeks here in October, but for the most part, we're fishing year round. We're doing content year round, and then when we're not doing that, we're doing consumer shows, which takes up a fair amount of time as well. So if I get a couple days to go play in the fall, I'm probably in a tree or shooting ducks somewhere. I don't know.
Good, man. Good. And shout out to the Romanack family, PK and the kids. They're troopers, man. I see them at the show. She gets her steps in, pushing them kids around the show, but they are awesome. It's really cool to see. You know, it's really cool to see a family like that grow up because that's really what we're doing. I mean, my wife and our 8-week-old, we're getting ready to head off to Madison, Wisconsin. Essentially, when this show airs Monday morning, we're going to be halfway to Madison, and we're going to be spending 3 days over there at a distributor show, you know, looking at new product, getting ready to load up for the fall and for spring. And it's like when you see other families like that, you know, not only survive, but thrive in those kind of environments. And obviously, behind the scenes, it's chaos, right? You got to change diapers and find time to feed and do all that. But it's really cool to be able to see them. And for me, it's going to be cool to watch my son kind of grow up in that environment and get to be around people and get to be around the fishing industry, something that I literally could only dream of when I was that age.
You know, it puts a huge smile on my face. You're like, I was in diapers going to sports shows, right? My parents took me to sports shows when I was in diapers. In fact, like, you know, Henry Boucher was the head of Strohspan Incorporated, the sports shows that we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Henry changed my diaper when I was a little kid, right? He's just, like, I'm used to that aspect. So it's so cool to see, you know, we're at the age now where we have kids that we're bringing to the shows, and it's really, really cool.
Well, and a lot of time, like, a lot of the people don't understand, and our customers, like, we talk about it all the time. I'm very transparent. As much as we love the shows, like, it's work.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's fun to go to these distributor shows, and I'm looking forward to going to these distributor shows because you get to talk to all the big guys from Rapala and Shimano and Pure Fishing, and you know, the guys from Bill Lewis are there, and I could go on and on and on about who's all there, and it's really fun. And again, when I was younger, it's what I dreamed of, but now it's work. Like, I got to sit down. You know, I'm there's money going out of my pocket, so like I got to sit down. You got to make sure it's the right thing, and then when we're at the consumer shows, you know, you guys are busy educating and answering all sorts of questions from all of your guys' fans and the people that watch your show. I'm out there we're trying to sell product. Like, it's a lot of fun. It's great to see everybody, but I got to sell product. We got bills to pay. It costs almost $3,000 to go to these shows. For you guys, you know, probably more with the space you've got. So it's like, you know, we also have to work. So to be able to kind of be in that environment where, yes, it's super fun, but also like, hey, there is a work side to it. Because that's something I didn't realize until I stood into your guys' booth. Is I was like, oh, this will be fun. I get to smile around and talk to fishermen. No, bullshit. We're working.
Yeah. No, 100%, dude. And I don't complain about it at all. I know you're not complaining about it either.
No.
We made fun. Fishing is fun, and it's what people do for enjoyment. We made it a job. We made it work. And anytime it doesn't matter what industry you're talking about, if you decide to make something work, it becomes work. And I don't ever feel like I have to wake up in the morning and go to work. It's just become a lifestyle. But
right.
it is. I mean, we definitely work to. It's not all fun and games. We don't get to just go catch fish all day long. We do have to do some work.
Oh yeah, no doubt, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time here, big time, because I know you're leaving for Canada. Shoot, when this show airs, you'll probably be halfway to Canada, huh? Monday morning.
I think I'm leaving Tuesday, so I'll be around. So make sure you send me a link to it, and we'll get it up on our. That's the other thing. Fishing 411 has a weekly newsletter, so we'll get it up there, share it on the weekly newsletter there as well. So you drop.
That would be awesome, man. I really appreciate it. And for you guys, listening here, obviously, if you want to find Fishing 411, you've already seen the banners come through. You already know where to find them. But again, obviously, YouTube, Fishing 411. But head to the website, fishing411.net. You can watch them on the World Fishing Network. You can watch them on the Sportsman's Channel. They're on Facebook, Fishing 411. They're not very hard to find, right, Jake?
No, we try to be out there as many places. Hopefully, you get sick of seeing my face around.
Hey, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I always say my guys are probably sick of seeing and hearing my voice, but it means we're at least doing something right in the marketing world, right?
For sure. For sure.
Hey, man, enjoy your time with your family. Tell the wife and the kids I said hello. Enjoy your time up north duck hunting. Be safe. For the rest of you guys, we obviously got to hit the business thing real quick before we get out of here. We got to thank our sponsors. We got to thank Whitewater Fish, Papa's Pilar, Cortland Line, and Great Lakes Anglers Co. Guys, here's the discount codes. Do yourself a favor and save yourself some money. If you want to try out some of this stuff from Whitewater before you go, all in on it, or you want to try some of this rum, you know where to find it. If you want to try some of this coffee, Captain Adam's done a great job with this stuff. We've got 3 different blends here at the shop. But all this stuff for the most part is local. You know what I mean? They're locally based, or at least Michigan based. Everyone except Papa's. That's kind of my little spoiled treat. But definitely, guys, reach out, support our sponsors. Let them know we sent you. It means the world to us. And we will see you guys next week on the Hook One Pod. Adios.